subscription show. I am Tim here today with Lance. Lance, how are you today?
I am doing fantastic today, Tim. I can't believe that we are once again recording a subscription show. It feels like a dream come true that we're doing
It
this yet
does.
again. I mean, the wheels are rolling. The wheels are turning and the machine is moving forward, and that feels great. The momentum feels great. I hope everybody out there had a great holiday. I don't care what you celebrate for a holiday. I don't care what you celebrate at the end of a year. I hope you enjoyed it. I don't mind whatsoever. Either way, Tim, how was your holiday?
Oh, pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah, we stayed over my dad's and yeah, the kids got a lot of presents. Yeah, it was exciting. It was a fun holiday.
Good,
How about you?
good. What kind of presents? What's on the what did Santa deliver this year?
Oh boy, the Nintendo Switch is probably the biggest one.
Oh,
Getting into some video games with the kids, 10 and 7. So yeah, they're right in that range where that's like all they were talking about. Um, and now they're playing with it. So there we
well,
go.
you're not concerned that video games are gonna damage their brains and they're gonna turn into criminals and start stealing cars?
Well, we haven't downloaded Grand Theft Auto yet, but maybe after that. No, I don't know. We keep limits on it, time limits. So I think that helps.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's good. That's good. I got
Yeah.
this new book for Christmas. It wasn't
Oh,
really a
which one?
Christmas gift, but I just got it in the mail.
Oh,
Did you
yes,
get
I
it
got
yet?
that as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Exciting book. I can't wait to
Yeah.
check this out.
Yeah, that's going to be an interview that we're going to be bringing to the public podcast feed probably in January 2025. And by the way, this is our subscription show. We are currently streaming live on YouTube. This episode will be aired on our public feed, but again, when we really get up and rolling, these will be on the subscription feed only. So you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts or on Supporting Cast. There'll be a link in the show notes. Supporting Cast is for the non-Apple users. And as far as the YouTube live show stuff, I don't know. I love going live on YouTube. It is so fun.
Why not?
So maybe we won't stop. Maybe we'll just run it live and then make it private after. I don't know.
Mhm.
We're still working this out,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
we'll figure
Again,
that out.
the wheels are rolling, momentum's moving forward, and as we're moving forward in this machine, we're flipping switches and seeing what works and what makes it move a little faster, more efficiently. One more
Yeah.
comment on the gifts, the Christmas gifts, because I have to reference the football behind me. You see above my pen?
Oh yes, I do.
Yeah, so my significant other, my partner in life, she got me a football because I don't know if you remember the story about how my parents were gonna. I wanted a football when I was a
Oh
kid.
yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted a football when I was a kid just to refresh people's memories. And my parents brought me to a store and they went inside and they were too cheap to get a football, so they got a kite. And I always wondered what my life would be like had they got me that football. so so she got me a football. It's right behind me here.
There it
And
is. Yeah.
for Christmas, I got her. So that was for my birthday. And one of her gifts for Christmas, I got her uh, football catching gloves.
Nice.
So we're gonna have some football sessions out in the yard soon. Maybe we'll take some
Nice.
videos and maybe make that part of the subscription show.
Get the Stickum spray too. That stuff's amazing. Spray it on those gloves.
Oh, okay, okay, good to know. Yeah, because the gloves have that sticky surface,
Yeah.
and she's never. I don't think she's ever touched a football until she bought me that. So this is gonna be. She might be the next Jerry Rice for all I know.
All right, everyone. We are going to break quick for commercial here for the podcast feed, and we'll be right back after this break.
We should do fake
Okay.
commercials during this period.
Yeah, no break for the YouTubers. Um, all right. So Lance, we wanted to speak a little bit about this live show that we did last week with John Wesley Anderson. And So we wanted to read some of the comments on that. But before we do, I just want to mention that we are also going to go over this article written by CNN's Ashley Strickland, and it's about historical mysteries solved by science in 2024. So a lot of DNA talk, a lot of interesting, solves or mysteries moved forward, I would say, in 2024, really because of DNA. So that's going to be a lot of fun to get into that article and sort of break those mysteries down very soon here.
Yes, and I don't think you understood that you hit on a nerve with me. Excuse me. You hit on a nerve with me with this article, not a bad nerve. It's a good nerve. There's a topic in there that I am a big fan of.
Oh,
So
good.
yeah, I don't think you realized that when you sent it to me.
Okay, good.
Teaser, big time teaser.
Okay, so yes, so we recently had a live show with John Wesley Anderson, author of the book Lou and John Bonet, and it's about the John Bonet Ramsey murder, unsolved murder, and and John also was a part of that docu series that aired on Netflix. Just I think around Thanksgiving, it began streaming, called Cold Case: Who Killed John Bonet Ramsey. And so we had a marathon live show with John Anderson last week. It was about 2 hours. And so we got a lot of comments. Um, John Anderson's friend, his friend Lou Smith, who's now deceased, was hired by Boulder's district attorney's office to investigate the Ramsey murder. And what he came up with was different than what the police force came up with. The police force wouldn't look at anybody really but the Ramsey family or the people in that house. And Lou Smith believes an intruder snuck in and murdered John Bonet Ramsey. So that is what the book is about, and that is what John's work on this case is about. And so, naturally, in an unsolved case that's gone on almost 30 years, you get a lot of different opinions. And honestly, we're seeing this in cases even that are recent, right? Like the Brian Koberger case. You see a lot of people saying that he is not guilty, when that one feels like and just evidentiary, evidentiary why evidence wise feels like a slam dunk case. Um, but this one I wouldn't say feels like a slam dunk case. But when you look at the evidence presented by Lou Smith in John Wesley Anderson's book, Lou and John Bonet, that's where I fall. That it seems like an intruder snuck in and was there waiting for the Ramsey family when they returned home on Christmas night. Um, and but like I said, naturally we have a lot of conflicting comments, and people just flat out think like John Anderson's being paid by Mr. Ramsey or even us.
I don't.
Like
I
we're brought in
really
on this.
like John Anderson has been in law enforcement his entire life. Like he's retired. He's about as like reputable as you can get when it comes to this. And I don't want to go ahead of myself here and read a comment before we're starting to read comments, but we had comments about who to turn to for an authentic voice in true crime about this case. And this authentic voice did not have direct contact with investigators who were working on and who are working on John Bonet's murder. I don't know. I don't know what else you can do to change people's minds. I don't really care, I guess, to change people's minds, but to present facts that seem to make sense, and then have people just say, "Well, I heard that Patsy failed the lie detector 4 times." Okay, well, you heard that? Like where? Like, is that a fact? Was it failed? Was it inconclusive? Like, ugh. All right, I can't get ahead of myself.
um yeah, so and there are a lot of nice comments too, a lot of good comments here. Diana says,
Yes.
excellent interview, follow the evidence, critical thinking, not loopholes. And then the Hoff 9 says, I would love to see that full homemade video presentation Lou made. Yeah, and that would be amazing to see. Apparently, it was a very large slideshow. John Wesley Anderson included much of it in his book, Lou and John Bonet, and I think the docu series went over much of it as well, but not all of it. So that would be interesting to see what was held back. Um, and on the other side as well, because we know that there was a grand jury and there's likely some things that we don't know. So that would be interesting to find out as well. But yeah, and then here Carolyn 5238 says it was staged. The foreign DNA came from the party earlier. The house was not the crime scene. So and then she actually goes
Oh,
on and says the parents didn't unalive their child. They were complicit in covering it up or making it difficult in what happened to her and put her in harm's way. So I
so
don't
the
know.
foreign DNA they're saying was taken. That was like touch DNA that was from the Christmas party that the parents had been to that evening, and then they took that DNA
Y-
in, and that's where that foreign DNA came from.
That's what Carolyn's saying. Yeah, and John Bonet and Burke were there as well. So it seems like they came home late that evening, the night of Christmas,
Hmm.
and John Bonet was asleep, and like they didn't change her clothes. She just was put
Right,
right into bed from the car.
right. Oh, sorry.
Um,
Good point. Yeah, the whole family was there, and that's where the
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Sorry. Right, right. So yeah, I can see that. I can see that. I can see that there's like DNA from the party. I want to know like, was there some follow up to that DNA? Did they find out who was at the party?
Well, you would think that those people at the party were tested as well, right? I mean, that would be
That's
the
what.
natural
Yeah,
investigatory thing to do, I think.
yeah. And I think a lot of this has like assumptions that go with it that like on my part and our part, like you would think so. You would think that
Yeah.
there would be testing of that DNA for any possibility of an individual to rule out. So hopefully that was
Mhm.
done. But seeing how the crime scene was handled right from the jump, I don't know. I don't know if
Yeah.
it was
So
too late at some point.
it's a good point.
Yeah, I like
I'm
again. It goes to like what, but the logic of that we've gone into this so many times. Like the John Bonet was never, according to her own doctor, she was seen over 2 dozen times. Was never There was never any sign of abuse. And for
right.
parents to just lose their minds like that, even if Burke hit her, in this weird break of sanity and rage, and knocked her out, they immediately go into murderous criminal mode, and now they're going to stage a sexual assault and strangulation of their own child. Like if the police were, and you brought this point up numerous times, if they were so invested on or convinced that they were responsible for this, how did they not get that piece of evidence that linked it to them if they were responsible?
Yeah. I don't know. And yeah, I also don't think it was possible for 9-year-old Burke to have hit Jean Bonnet as hard as the damage that she had on her skull. Her skull was indented, and it was consistent with a fall from like a 3-story building, I believe, is
Yeah,
what the evidence showed. So it's not like she bumped her head accidentally, or Burke pushed her into the wall, or even like the counter. Like no hard surface in the house from a push or something could have done that. In my understanding of the damage anyway.
yeah. So Sandra wrote that this is true crime rocket science. I don't know. I'll check that out. Have you heard of true crime rocket science? It was mentioned a couple of times in the comments that they, I
Yeah,
guess,
no, I haven't seen it.
yeah,
No.
I guess they covered it. And apparently they're an authentic voice in true crime, according to a couple people here. But I guess there was a book too. They need to read his series of books on the case. But Sandra writes, I believe Burke hit her on the head with the mag light. I believe Burke hit her on the head with the mag light, which was wiped clean of fingerprints. That knocked her out. So it's already like trying again to prove that negative. So she believes that
Yeah.
Burke hit her in the head with a mag light, and then they wipe that mag light clean of fingerprints. So you created the scenario, and then you created the scenario that would answer any questions about, okay, well, were Burke's fingerprints on the mag light? Well, no. Oh, well, they must have cleaned it of fingerprints and then staged it. You just invented that whole scenario
Yeah.
instead of looking at a past history of this family never abusing their daughter, and Burke never abusing his sister.
But I'm Allison here says paycheck for Lou and team. I think John knows what happened.
Paycheck. Which one is this? Allison.
It's in one of the comments.
Yeah.
Um,
Paycheck.
yeah, speculating that John Anderson knows, I guess, what really happened. I don't know if we're part of that team for Lou and team. Paycheck for Lou and team. I think John knows what happened. Here's a fact dictating theory. Fact: spiders are dormant during the winter, which means web was spun before winter. You are literally doing what you quote not to do, ignoring or stating facts to support your theory. Horrible podcast.
Aw. Thanks for listening.
I
Horrible
mean,
podcast.
definitely.
That far.
First of all, there's definitely spiders indoors in the winter.
I mean, I'm looking at one right now.
Yeah. So that's incorrect. I get the point saying that the spider, but that is what people point to when they say an intruder couldn't have come in because there was a spider web there. And we talked about that with John Anderson. He said that if you've ever seen a spider, I watched a spider this fall
Yeah.
spin a huge web. It was like an orb weaver
Yeah.
spider,
Super
big
common.
spider.
Yeah.
Spin a huge web, and it took like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So
I can't tell you the amount of times I vacuumed a spider web from the same area of my house within days of each. Like, if they've found a home somewhere and their web is ruined, they most likely will make a new web. I can't believe we're talking about the behavioral patterns of an arachnid. I get it, like I get it.
Yeah.
It's it was there. So if someone came in, it would have been disturbed. But I mean, is it not possible for a spider to make a new web in the meantime? Yes, it's possible.
And a lot of people talking about the train tracks and the stun gun.
Yeah.
Here's CCCMMM13 says, why do Burke's train tracks match more than the stun gun mark, a stun gun that was also never found? So apparently John Bonet had marks on, I believe it was on her face and her back, that Detective Lou Smith believed were from a stun gun.
Mhm.
And there was a different documentary made a few years ago that theorized that the marks on her face and back, I believe, were from a train track, like a model train track that the family, I guess, was gifted that Christmas. And the train tracks also are like the same centimeter, same measurement distance apart as the stun gun would be. So I could see where that would add to some confusion and some opening of doors of like a different theory. But what John said was, the electricity would have been gone from that train track. So it wouldn't have been a shock. It would have been, some kind of cut if there's a mark from those train tracks, right? It would have had to have been like pushed into her to break the skin. As opposed to being, electrocuting her.
I mean, I've never heard of any accidents with a train track, but then again, like, my pause there was because I've never looked into it. But to have that happen twice on her body, when a model train, when the electricity that runs through a model train track, like, is it that powerful to
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know.
And why
I guess it wouldn't have anyway. Like that, so it would have been pushed into her face and back, I guess, anyway. But again, I don't think we're accounting for some kind of struggle there, right? Like we're assuming, John Bonet is still and you either electrocute with a taser or stun gun, or you push like those train tracks into her body, while the person is still, right? So I think naturally there would be a little bit of movement that would sort of throw off that measurement just a touch.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And I'll go one step further and try to invite people to now prove my scenario negative in regards to the train track. So Burke hits her or damages her with the train track once. Why isn't she screaming? Why isn't she running away from him? And why isn't she going to her parents? Why aren't the parents waking up and saying, Burke, what are you doing? Like, is it just that much of a like sinister household?
I don't know.
Yeah. Also,
Uh,
right underneath that comment, Emmy53 said, "No way an intruder used a quote loud stun gun." End quote. I don't recall anyone ever saying that the stun gun was loud.
yeah, I mean, I guess we don't know, right? Because the stun gun wasn't present in the house. So there were other things taken from the house, like part of the paintbrush. Certain things came from outside the house too, like the
Mhm.
duct tape over John Bonet's mouth, the cord used to tie the garrote or the garret, um, also was brought into the house, seemingly, because there was no other part of that cable and no other part of that duct tape that was found in the house, and they looked, apparently
Yeah,
it was searched.
I, I have more of a problem with the quotes around loud stun gun. I don't remember. Do you remember anyone saying that they used a loud stun gun?
It's not quiet, like I've played with one. My friend had
Yeah,
one. I used to stun myself in the arm
yeah,
very
great
briefly.
story. But in our interview,
No,
did John say loud?
I don't recall.
Okay, if he did, then this whole point, I'm sorry for bringing it up, but I don't recall him ever saying that it was a loud stun gun. But by putting that in quotes, you've categorized content as being inconsistent and not reliable when it was never said. So if
Mhm.
someone doesn't watch this or listen to this, they'll think that someone in that conversation said they used a loud stun gun on her. And you'll immediately say, well, that just doesn't make sense. I mean, these people don't know what they're talking about. And
But
if you haven't
also,
and if you don't follow up and listen, then you don't get the information and you just move on and say, don't even check that out. The guy's full of crap.
yeah. Um, but also the Ramsey parents slept on a different floor. Like, I really urge everyone to watch the docu series, because they
Mhm.
show you the inside of the house a bit more, and they're on a different floor. Um, I believe Burke is on the same floor as Jean Bidet, but a different room, and probably the doors could be closed. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much sound we're assuming a stun gun does make. It definitely makes a zapping sound, but if she was stunned in her bed before taken downstairs, I don't think there's any guarantee that anyone in the house would have heard that.
No. Everyone's sleeping. No one's even if
Or
they
even
do
if they're
hear it,
just getting
even if
ready for bed.
yeah,
Yeah.
even if they hear a sound, like it's a super quick sound, they probably
Mhm.
don't really think much about it. I mean,
Right.
why would you? I will say the rest of Emmy's comment, I do agree with. I mean, there's a lot of things that are bizarre. She says, it's as bizarre as the ransom note. Uh,
Yeah.
they proceed to the basement to kill the child and escape via the window. The intruder could have easily walked out the front door or a lower floor. I mean, we talked about that. Like, why wouldn't you just leave through the front door? Why would you start a kidnapping and then escalate it to a horrific sexual assault and strangulation and bludgeoning? So we're talking about a lot of things that are bizarre. And it is. It's very bizarre. So
Yeah. And the whole handwriting analysis is very subjective. As John spoke about, like, I think someone who considers themselves a handwriting expert, might disagree with someone else who considers
mhm,
themselves a handwriting expert. I think it's much like, say, a private investigator, right? Private detectives can work on the same case and come up with two different thoughts. I mean, heck, the Boulder police did. There's
Mhm.
one detective who thought John did it, and one police officer who thought that Patsy did it. So same facts. They're professional law enforcement, and they are coming up with different scenarios. So I don't know.
I do like
Yeah.
Anna Lisette 5897 says this case is toxic. It seems some people feel a tremendous emotional reward through hating and blaming the family. No amount of evidence will change these deep beliefs. It's so right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and we're seeing it, right? It is kind of wild to see the just the thoughts about the family out there. I don't know. I don't understand. I struggle to understand how and why they get so much negativity. I do understand, like, if you get down the pathway of the case and you don't think the Ramseys did it, but you could still hold them in like a negative regard, I suppose, for I guess exposing John Bonet the way that she was exposed with the singing and dancing that she did and the beauty pageants. I mean, I understand that point, but again, I think it's kind of natural, and you just can't protect your kid from everything. You can't just say, well, there are perverts and pedophiles out there. you know my kid is not going to do a dance competition or something because of that. Then you're preventing the kid from living while they're alive. So, but I understand that point. As a parent, I definitely understand that, but what can you do? That's not the point of the conversation, right?
Right.
Like, yeah. Okay.
I don't know. I
What do
don't
you
know.
got?
There's a lot here to comment on and then, re-comment on and try to
Yeah,
prove, different arguments and scenarios. But we do appreciate all of them.
we do.
There's most of these are like very well articulated and bring up good points.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. Even if you're
exactly.
disagreeing with, all this, that's fine. That's, what we're here for. We want to see, the discourse. Um, but a comment like socially patterned defect 9580, Sherlock Lou Smith was wrong about everything.
Yep.
I don't think that's true at all. Not to mention this case, but the guy worked other murder cases that were convictions. Like, that's just not true. So
I know. And it's like now you're wasting time and brain space trying to defend just a random comment. You're Sherlock Lou Smith, you know, was wrong. Okay, well, okay, where's your evidence on that? Where is the backup to that? Where are the documents? Again, I'll bring up the document from the toxicology no. I'll bring up the oh my god. I'll bring up the DNA document that we were referencing where it rules out John and Patsy. Like
mhm.
that's a comment we can make and say, well, Patsy and John their DNA was ruled out from these exhibits that were taken as evidence.
Right. Um, yeah, and I think uh, that some people still think it was Burke Ramsey, and I think that's a really wild theory. But here, Steve says the ransom note was not written by an adult, as evidenced by its contents, and it was signed SBTC. Sly Burke takes control. It's not rocket science.
Come on. Also, we do have people who are commenting here. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
In the Riverside, I sometimes don't see the little chat feature. So, hi to Diana and Anna. And yeah,
Yep.
that's it.
There's Diana's comment. I feel for Burke with so much blame falling on him. He wasn't strong enough to do any of the things that happened to her. I completely agree, Diana.
Absolutely.
He's a 9-year-old
Yeah.
um, who evidently loved his family and his sister. Like, you know, yeah.
And this is a good comment. Yeah, I know. All
Yep.
right. I mean, sure.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Diana. Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Diana. Okay, so you want to get to this article?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay, so let's take a break here for the podcast feed, and we'll be right back to speak about mysteries solved in 2024. Okay, we are back. And I am going to put the link to this article from CNN here in the chat. The title, the headline is "Historical Mysteries Solved by Science in 2024." It's from Ashley Strickland. Came out on Christmas Day, and really interesting stuff because it all talks about DNA and how scientists are using DNA to solve these historical mysteries that some of them I didn't even know about. But yeah, it's pretty cool article, and I'm glad that Ashley put this together to sort of put it in one place because otherwise we'd be doing the work, sort of digging back um, through 2024 and trying to find all these mysteries, right?
Yep.
Okay, so the first one is about this Vitrip man who was murdered in Vitrip, Denmark, about 5,200 years ago. And his body was found in a peat bog in 1915. Um, was a mystery for a long time. And turns out this guy was actually a first generation immigrant from southern Scandinavia. So he wasn't a local. And the scientists were very surprised by this. That this person wasn't local, actually moved, had a fish diet for about the first half of his life, seals and whales, but his life changed drastically in his late teens when he moved to Denmark and shifted to a farmer's diet, eating sheep and goat. And he died between 30 and 50, or sorry, 30 and 40. And they don't know exactly how or why he was killed. They said he may have been killed as a sacrifice, or perhaps he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But yeah, he's a genuine first generation immigrant who traveled from northern to southern Scandinavia. Interesting.
It is interesting. It is interesting. Ross joined and said, "Wow, these guys are live. Maura Murray legends." And I laughed because he's joining and he's saying Maura Murray legends, and we're talking about this Vitrip man, the first immigrant,
Yeah,
not
well,
not related to
DNA.
Maura Murray.
Yeah, DNA is solving cases. We're
Yep.
hoping that it solves the case of John Benet Ramsey at some point in 2025. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to look at how far we've come with DNA. Going back to solve these historical mysteries, something that's pretty wild to me.
Yeah, and I love the idea of this first immigrant, like a genuine first generation
Yeah,
immigrant, and it is a good experiment and study into the transition, like they say here, from northern to southern Scandinavia. So there's a lot that goes with that. Like you can tell what the climate was like if you see the dietary, like, what am I trying to say? Habits of somebody who's going from one region to another region. How did that change over the course of a few thousand years? And where does that mean that we're going in the future? You can like watch like the escalation of climate change from that point to this point based on someone's dietary uh, habits and necessities.
Hmm.
And why would someone move, right? Isn't that cool? Like, was it just curiosity? Just
I
didn't feel
guess
like
he
being in
wanted
that
to be a
area
farmer.
anymore and wanted to see what else was out there?
Yeah, seems like he wanted to be a farmer.
Love it.
Was done with the coast and the seafood, and wanted to
Yeah,
move inland.
yeah. And how did he even
Yeah.
know? How do you know? You don't have social media. No one's telling you through electronic waves that there's another area that you can go to and sustain yourself on, or it's even going to be a welcome area. So this is a huge risk for somebody.
I mean, maybe it wasn't a welcome area.
Now, true,
because he was murdered.
was murdered. Yep.
But probably after about 20 years or so of living there. But yeah, interesting story. So no answer on why he was murdered or by who, or
Hmm.
but a little bit more learned about him. And then there's another one, Well Man. So this is an interesting story. There was a body found in a well at Norway's Sverresborg Castle. Body was found in 1938, and they were finally able to use some radiocarbon dating, and the carbon dating said that the remains are about 900 years old. So somewhere in the range of the year 1200, the body was tossed in the well, possibly in an attempt to poison the water supply. That's a little unknown, but this well man had medium skin tone, blue eyes, light brown or blonde hair, but was not from the local population. And so that was the surprise to the scientists. He was from southern Norway, which suggested that the sieging army might have thrown one of their own dead into the well.
That's some real biological warfare there. If you're throwing a body into a well to poison the water supply, right? They used to do that back in the day. They used to throw infected bodies over the walls into cities so that they can, have some spread of disease in order to further eliminate a population. So popping a body in a well seems to be right along that course. It's disturbing to think about that, right? Like some people probably drank from this well.
Yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
no,
And
these
who
people
knows?
definitely drank from this well.
Right. And who knows what problems they may have had from that. Yeah.
I don't know if this is a good comment or a bad comment.
From Ross, says these fellas hooked me into the Maura Murray case. No way to escape.
Yeah.
Can't disagree.
Ooh, and this
And then he
one.
says also Brianna Maitland.
Yes.
Yes, that's very much the case. Yes, we've covered those two disappearances from New England, 2004 in New England, in depth. You can scroll all the way back in our podcast feed, in the missing podcast feed, to find the missing Maura Murray and the missing Brianna Maitland series. Also, I
Ooh.
think those feeds live on their own. If you're like, oh, that's 500 episodes to dig through, that's too much, just type in missing Maura Murray or missing Brianna Maitland into your podcatcher, and you'll find those series there
Or you could go through. You could listen to every one of them from episode
from
one, and
scratch.
yep. I'm gonna put this
Please.
link here and pop it on screen. So speaking of Brianna Maitland,
Oh, great. Cool.
that is our
Investigations for the
nonprofit.
missing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Investigations for the Missing, Private Investigations for the Missing, run by Bruce Maitland. Could always use a good donation. This is a nonprofit that Bruce Maitland founded in honor of Brianna. This is not a foundation that is set up to work on Brianna's disappearance. It is set up so that family members can enlist the services of licensed private investigators in their area at no cost. So when you're making a donation, it's going towards private investigators' expenses when they are enlisted to look up other missing persons all over the country and into other parts of the world.
Yes.
But don't
Absolutely. It's a great nonprofit.
great nonprofit, and we've worked on one dog case. A successful missing dog was returned to their owner, but do not contact Officer Lou because for your missing parrot, he made that clear. But if you do have a missing parrot,
Yeah,
you could
that
probably pull on his heartstrings, and he'll help out.
Yeah, he might, but he might be against it. But yeah, check out that episode. That was I think it's titled Da Vinci. And I think it came out about a year ago on the Missing podcast.
Yeah,
So Da
Thanksgiving time.
Vinci
Yeah.
is the name of the dog. Yeah. And Christina was our guest, who was the owner of Da Vinci the dog. And the dog was sort of taken from her, and but then returned.
Yeah.
And so we get that story from Christina. Really cool story.
Yep. So Eric is asking, are you guys taking questions on the Maura Murray case? I don't ask one
if you
question.
got one, maybe
You're allowed one
maybe
question.
we will.
Yeah. 'Cause, I mean, we were
Okay.
doing John Bonet last time, and people were asking about Maura Murray, and we had to say we can't do that right now.
Yeah, it happens. It happens. We definitely worked on Morgan Murray's case for about 5 years. There was the Oxygen documentary that we were part of. We were in it. We were consulting producers on that. That came out in 2017. So if you're not familiar with Maura Murray's disappearance, definitely something to look into. Um, make sure you follow Julie Murray on social
Yes,
media. She is out there now on social media, sort of in a wider format than ever before. So that is great. We root for her and the Murray family and justice in the case.
absolutely.
Okay, so let's answer
Let's
this
answer.
question
Yeah.
here from Eric. um, have they tried testing the roof of the car for cigarette residue? They would still be able to do that and would put to rest if someone was in the passenger seat smoking. Great question.
Great
There
question.
has long been the rumor about a man smoking a cigarette, and that was actually taken directly from the witnesses who called 911 in the case, who were calling from a distance from their kitchen, I believe, looking out the window, maybe about 100 feet or so out the window to where Mora's car was, and they said they believe they saw a man smoking a cigarette. um, I think I wouldn't say that has been debunked exactly, but I think it's not the prevailing theory at this point that there was a man smoking the cigarette there. I think the prevailing theory is that there was not a man, that the light that the witnesses saw were potentially from Mora using her cell phone, which would have potentially lit up um, a red light, and she was trying to make a phone call. And then possibly smoke would have been from a breath, maybe breath either inside or outside the car on a very cold night could happen. I don't know. I don't know.
Well,
That's my best answer there.
yeah, and that's been the answer for years. Like it's really remarkable to me. Again, bringing up Julie Murray, follow Julie Murray and the whole group, the coalition, um, the New Hampshire Coalition for. I wasn't prepared for this, so the name is escaping me. But cold cases. So it's impressive what they're doing to keep the light shining on a number of cold cases and putting pressure on the folks in the New Hampshire, I guess, I don't know, the Attorney General's office. Um,
Mhm.
but anyway, I'm so impressed that it's 2024 going into 2025 and we're still talking about the cigarette in the car. And a great question. Maybe at some point, I don't know what the state of the car is now. Do we know if that car has been
As
removed
far
and
as I know,
impounded?
I believe it's still up there in that lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Unless, yeah,
yeah, so we don't know if the roof was tested for cigarette residue or anything like that.
yeah. I'm wondering how much
That's
good that would do though. Like if you tested and you said
yeah,
someone smoked a cigarette here, you still can't even prove that it was someone who smoked it that night.
right, right. So many years removed, it would be hard to get specific answers on that. And here
Oh,
Ross says, I super chatted a Maura Murray question. It didn't get answered, but I'll gladly defer my money to missing dog cases.
oh.
Thank you, Ross.
What was the
I'm not
question?
sure. I'm not sure we're set up for super chats.
What
If
is
you
super
said that
chat?
you set, well, I think it's a way to pay, and then like we would get some notification that that was a paid question that we would
Oh,
answer, I guess, more of those than the unpaid ones. But I'll have to take a look. I honestly don't know that we're set up for super chats or anything like that. So
well,
if
apologies
that's
if
what
someone
happened,
paid for a question and
I
it wasn't answered. You can,
apologize.
yeah, ask it. Ask it now.
Yeah.
Wow,
Okay. Yeah.
wow, people are
Let me
blowing
see
up
if I
right
can
now with
see it
this.
here in the
Good to
chat.
see you, Fancy,
Oh
and
yeah, I
thank you,
see.
Jessica.
Oh
Nice comment.
yes. Okay. So here is the question. Your thoughts on Maura Murray being murdered in a house not far from where she crashed. Okay,
Ah,
so yes, so he did super chat us.
where
Thank
are
you
you
very
seeing
much,
this?
Ross. That it's I went to YouTube, went out of the Riverside for it.
Oh,
If you go to the YouTube chat, you'll
yeah,
see it.
yep,
Um,
yep.
yeah. Okay, so our thoughts on Maura Murray being murdered in a house not far from where she crashed. I absolutely think that's a possibility. We've certainly checked out some of those houses, two of them specifically with ground penetrating radar, cadaver dogs, and there was no evidence that we found. I believe what Detective Chuck West said to us on the phone was what you found had no evidentiary value,
Mhm.
which could be could actually mean a lot of things. Like that could mean, well, you found nothing, or it could mean anything you found is still not usable in court. So we can't really do anything with it, even if it had something of note. Um, so a little tough to, I guess, to decipher that comment, but I do think it's a possibility. I don't know which house. I would have to guess the two houses that we have been to are probably not were probably not Mora's final resting place, that being the A-frame house and Rick Forcier's former residence, which was sort of right there in the corner near, very close to where Mora's car crashed or laid.
Mhm.
So that's my answer on that. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. My personal opinion has always been she got into a car and left the scene. And what happened to her after, based on the work that we did with law enforcement in New Hampshire, you mentioned the great Chuck West. He was remarkable to work with. It was incredible to get phone calls from him in regards to Maura Murray. Always a sort of nerve-wracking moment when Chuck West sends an email and was like, "Can you guys hop on a call?" Because it's like, what did we screw up? What is he going to tell us that to take down, or we ruined some investigation? But he was never like that. He was always such a cooperative, generous person, and he never led us astray. And that comment that he made was an official sounding comment. He's referring to different layers of concrete that our crew that we brought in, professionals in doing this, in ground penetrating radar and pulling up any sort of material that would have evidence in it. They did it in such a clean, responsible, as non-destructive way as possible. So we bagged this evidence for them. It was handled so appropriately.
Yeah, they were there at the site to retrieve it as well.
Yep.
So to not sort of puncture the chain of custody.
Yeah. Yes. And it was from 1 inch to 3 inches, 3 inches to 6 inches, 6 inches to 9 inches. So if there was anything that had permeated into there, they would see it, and it would give them a sense of like how long it had been there. And based on our work there and him saying no evidentiary value, we ruled out the A-frame. Was she there at some point? Maybe. I don't know. But was that where she theoretically or allegedly or hypothetically lost her life? Probably not. Uh, is her body buried somewhere over there? Probably not, because we looked there with
And we
the
brought dogs and
brought
have the
dogs,
ground penetrating radar.
ground penetrating radar. The house on the corner that you mentioned, Forcier's, same deal. We dug. We sent a camera down into that well that was there.
Right.
Uh, Sent dogs there. Ground penetrating radar. That family who owned the house at the time was super generous as well. They let us in, and we looked into different parts of the house. So no, you have to rule that out. Was she there at some point? Maybe. I don't know. But she was not allegedly or theoretically or hypothetically murdered there. So that leads me to believe she was in a car, and whatever happened to her happened further down. And we did have Chuck West ask us if we had looked into a certain area. Have you guys remember that? Have you guys checked out that trailhead? I don't want to say where it was, but it was an area that was within a certain radius of that area where her car was found. And he
Yep.
asked me, oh, not me. Sorry, I saw Fancy say I agree, Lance. So then I said me. Uh, so thanks, Fancy. So he asked us, "Have you looked into that area?" And he said that on the phone, and I don't remember what your reaction was, but I remember feeling that when he asked it, it was almost like it wasn't an intended question. Like it was sort of an impulsive question.
Yeah, I can't say I remember what I was thinking, other than like just trying to recall exactly what he was talking about as far as where.
Yeah.
And then it kind of, you know, got into my head that that would have been like a few miles away at the very least,
Hmm.
for where Mora's car left. So then you're left with other questions like, oh, I guess she must have ran up there or got a ride there or something, you know? So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. Unfortunately, there's so many unanswered questions in that case. I wish we had more answers. I know we did sort of dispel some rumors and theories with our work on the case. I think that was valuable, but yeah, I wish we had an actual answer here.
I know. And we were so hopeful when the body when these remains were found on what's the name of that ski resort? Stowe?
Oh, Loon Mountain,
Oh, no, no,
or
no. When they were installing the new, I think it was Stowe,
oh,
when they were
right, right.
installing the new chair lifts, the new ski
Okay,
lifts, and they found
I thought it was Loon because of the connection with the mysterious Loon 3. But either way, it was
yeah.
an ancient bones basically.
Yeah. Let me just look this up real
Yeah.
quick. Sorry
Okay.
guys, we haven't talked about this in a little while. Oh yeah, no, I said what did I say? Did I say Stowe? Stowe's
You
in
said
Vermont.
Stowe. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was Loon. It was Loon. Okay.
Yeah. So they were installing the new chairlift. New chairlift is probably up and running by now.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Um,
I mean, it was like an 8-person chairlift.
it was supposed to be pretty great. Yeah.
Pretty
I
cutting edge, like
think there
state of
were.
the art. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that
So
felt like
they
it was
dug
it.
it.
Didn't that feel like it was it because they put the other one in right around after her disappearance, and it seemed to make
Right.
sense.
Yeah. Again, with any like, proposed conclusion in that case, you kind of have to like go back and be like, well, I guess the Loon 3 was the answer all along. When there's never been it's never been proven that there were three people who called into work
No.
Loon Mountain and didn't show up that night because they had picked up Mora. You know what I mean? Like that's never been proven anyway. So for that to have been Mora, then these other unproven things would have had to have probably been true in some way. So I don't know. I don't know. It is a crazy case in that way, and kind of unlike John Bonet's case in that we don't have a body. There's no DNA evidence. Um, Similar in the way that there are theories all over the place, but yeah, just not an answer, unfortunately.
Yeah. I want to show this on the screen here. These guys spoke to the occupants of the house. I want to say John Smith. No, it was John Smith was the private investigator who had been working on Moore's disappearance and had connected with us for a long period of time and worked with us. The occupants of the house, I don't want to say their names because they have historically been not interested in going public or speaking with people about this. And I don't want to bring any more attention to them, but
So, well, I guess Ross might be right, depending on who he's talking about.
oh,
The occupants of what house, right? If he's
well,
talking
yeah,
about the folks, the older folks who called 911 first, then he would be right because he
yeah,
did
he
speak
posted that when you were
with them,
talking
with John
about
Smith.
that.
Okay,
Yeah. So the house there right across the street. Yeah.
right.
So that we spoke to them with John Smith, and you can check that out in Finding More Murray, the docu series.
Definitely on one of the podcast episodes.
That didn't make the docu
Not really
series.
sure it's. I'm not really sure it's in that docuseries. No,
See,
I don't think so.
oh, sorry, people. It's been a while.
All right, we're going to take a quick break for the podcast here, and we'll be right back to talk more about these 2024 mysteries.
Or More Murray.
Okay, we are back here. This one was really interesting, and not connected to Murray's case, but I I do want to say there was a fake, some kind of fake account by the name Casper Hauser, that was floating around for years. I never knew that it was actually about this historical mystery. Apparently, there was this lost prince. Um, and there was this guy wandering around Nuremberg without identification in May of 1828, and he was 16 years old. And I guess he went by the name Caspar Hauser. And there was a story about how he was a kidnapped prince taken from a royal family of Baden, in what's now southwest Germany. And that rumor spread far and wide to the point where people thought that he was this sort of lost prince from the Baden royal family. But this year, his hair samples were analyzed to prove that his mitochondrial DNA passed down on the maternal side did not match the mitochondrial DNA from the Baden family.
Yeah, this is a
So,
big one. This is a big one.
yeah.
This was the one that I don't think you realized the chord you struck when you sent the article to me and said this is cool. When I read Caspar Hauser, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Caspar Hauser, and it stems from the 1974 film by Werner Herzog, The Enigma of Caspar Hauser, where he tells the story of Caspar Hauser, and this actor Bruno S played the part of Hauser, and Bruno S was this enigma in himself. He wasn't a trained actor, but it was somebody that Herzog had seen and thought that there was like similarities between him and Caspar Hauser in the way that he was sort of a mystery and temperamental, and he was an incredibly talented actor, but a diamond in the rough, and he was rough as well. And the movie itself is like tragic and funny, and just an incredible movie. So after watching that and reading up on Caspar Hauser, it is one of the more fascinating historical mysteries. It tells a story about mental illness. This Caspar Hauser was a famously mentally ill person and trying to come off as a prince, but to have DNA now saying that he's not part of this lineage is really, really a big moment for this story.
Yeah, and apparently his tombstone reads "The Riddle of His Time."
The riddle of his
So it
time, the
was,
enigma. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
So
incredible.
one riddle solved here. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely incredible. There's been, I think, a couple of operas written about him. There's been another like TV movie. I think there's been a couple of books written about him. I haven't like watched or read everything that's been produced, but he's got this like never-ending appeal because of no, not as fascinating than Moore Murray, but thank you, Ross. Um, yeah, it's just this always like again, never-ending appeal. There's always something that comes up like once every few years that will be an update on it, or someone will just put something out there that's a reference to it, and it's super interesting. And I'm so glad that that was part of this article. I never would. I
Yeah.
probably wouldn't have found this if I didn't see the article.
Yeah, very strange story. I definitely I hadn't heard of that other than I don't know if it was a troll. It was someone with a Facebook account named that,
Hmm.
was like, I believe commenting. This is going back a few years, but and Ross sends us another super chat. $20. Thank you, Ross.
Wow,
Says this is a
Ross.
huge thrill to catch. Yeah, this is a huge thrill to catch you guys live. When nobody else cared, you dove face first into this case and swum in every direction, no matter where it went. Thank you. You guys are pit bulls. Well,
Aw,
thank you. I really appreciate that.
yeah.
Yeah, we certainly have a lot of passion for unsolved cases, missing persons, and any case that we feel like we have uh, a good direction to push in, we're going to push, right? And you're seeing that with the John Benet Ramsey case. Whether or not you believe that's the right direction to push or not, I don't know, but we're certainly pushing in a certain direction.
Hmm.
And in Mora's case, it's so hard to know the right direction to push, and I think that's probably one of the reasons we kind of took a step back. But another reason is because the Murray family is just more prevalent nowadays, which is a great thing, and they really weren't when we started. In fact, there was they're a very private family, and they were even more private then.
Hmm.
um, So yeah, so that was one of the reasons we dove in, and thank you for your comment. That was really nice.
Yeah, and since you brought up the family, just saying that they became more vocal, and that's amazing, and that meant that we no longer should be that vocal because this is not an individual who we are related to or even knew. And now that the family has become more vocal and Julie has taken charge and forming a coalition to help other families is amazing. And that's not our
Yeah.
place to start speaking about her sister anymore. It just isn't. But we do appreciate everybody asking us questions. We'll definitely answer questions just based on our experience. And that's why we always will say, in the right place, we'll answer the questions. But if you really want to get the new information or you want to get closer to the source, then check out Julie Murray and what she's doing on social media and with the coalition with the other families. And you'll learn about other families and their tragedies too, if that's something that you're interested in supporting. Uh, and we'll answer questions on Brianna Maitland. We're directly connected to Bruce Maitland through the nonprofit. And if we don't have an answer about Brianna, we have Greg Overacker, who we can reach out to, or Lou Berry, who we can reach out to, or Bruce, if the question is appropriate enough. So ask questions about Brianna too, and Sheila Shepard and Erica Franelich.
Yeah,
You could say
either one.
yeah, potato,
I
potato.
think you could say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ask us
Okay,
anything.
I do want to. Yeah, I mean, you know what? This is fun. This is actually why we do this live, right?
I will do this all morning. I will do this until I have to, until my bladder's about to pop. Who's this?
Yeah,
Jennifer
Jennifer Kessie.
Kessie. Do you know this?
I'm familiar. In fact, I have a book on Jennifer Kessie's disappearance right next to me here. We met this fellow. I believe it was Bill Gilmore.
Oh
I
my
believe he's
God.
Jennifer Kessie's uncle.
Yes.
I want to say. And he wrote this book. It's called Aftermath of Jennifer Kessie's Abduction, An Uncle's Quest for Understanding and Inspiring Life Lessons. We did talk to him and his wife at CrimeCon, where he gave us this book very, very, very nicely.
Oh my God.
But yeah, I think he even said that it's not like, so much about finding answers, but it's like how to deal with it, and it sort of has a little bit of a spiritual angle, but that is an interview that we said we should do at some point, even if we're not the most religious or spiritual people. It is information that would be good to put out there,
right?
So yeah, thank you for reminding us about this case, because
Ross.
I'll be honest, I don't know much about the disappearance itself, but I do know that we met Jennifer's uncle, and we did consider having him on to speak about this book and their journey. And I think that's something we should revisit.
Definitely. We did look into this a little bit, because you had brought up the mystery where the car is found, but the body is not found and the person's still missing. And she was one of them, because her car was found, I guess, like really close to where she lived. It's all kind of coming back to me in fragments right now. And I think there was some like CCTV footage of the car being parked there by an individual, and that like an unknown person, and that person walked away. And I remember that like triggered me, and I hadn't thought about it in like a couple of years. But that's a good one. I mean, not a good one in the sense of good. It's a you know what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying it's good.
An incredible mystery.
It's an incredible mystery.
Yeah, she's been missing since January 23rd, 2026. Or sorry, 2006. 2006.
Gotcha.
Yes, from Florida.
Florida? Okay.
Orlando. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Ross, we'll give you your $20 back for that one. Thank you. Just kidding. I'm not giving you your money back. I don't even know where. Anyway, let's look into that.
Well, here's a question that Ross has about Brianna Maitland.
Great.
He says, is there any update on the DNA they supposedly have? And so there was an interview that we conducted, I want to say maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago now, with Lou about the DNA that was found. And so there was some DNA, some items found outside of the car in that area where Brianna's car was left. There were a lot of items gathered back in 2004. Othram Labs jumped in and tested some of the items, there was some DNA found, and they actually identified the owner of that DNA and went to visit that person, and it is not connected to Brianna Maitland's case. That's really all we can say about it now. But I think there are probably a few details that are sort of left to be, desired there. But yeah, I don't think we can talk about it any more than that. Mostly for the identification of the DNA holders' sake. Um, a little bit about the family too, but they're just it just wasn't connected, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Damn it.
damn it is right.
Indeed.
Yeah. Um, okay, so there in this article from CNN, Lance, there was a mention of Ludwig van Beethoven, the
Never
classical
heard of him.
composer, died at age 56 in 1827 after a lifetime of ailments, including deafness, liver disease, and gastrointestinal complaints. And there might be some answers finally on what he was suffering from. Apparently, he had lead poisoning
Not
for
surprising back then. They didn't understand the
yeah,
dangers of lead.
right. So he also had arsenic and mercury poisoning,
Again,
and
not
this
not surprising.
right this was apparently posited from because he ate fish from the polluted Danube River, and plumbed wine from the time was sweetened and preserved with lead.
With lead. With lead. They had
Yeah,
no idea. It's surprising
yeah,
anyone lived past like 20. They had no idea how things were bad for them. A lot of the mental illness that painters had back then was because there was lead in the paint, and they would sometimes put the brushes in their mouths when they were changing brushes. So they would unintentionally be like ingesting lead. My dog Eric's
very
going
interesting.
absolutely bonkers right now, so there's probably a burglar coming in the house. Uh,
Um, well, what's interesting, I think, about this is that the study co-author William Meredith said that, or truly believes that there is a connection between his suffering and his music, and I'm sure he's
yeah,
not the only person who felt that way. Um, but that's interesting to think like, oh, this lead poisoning or mercury poisoning, you know, could be why we have some of the greatest music ever composed.
hmm yeah, yeah. I mean, imagine if he didn't have suffering. If Beethoven did not have any suffering, he wouldn't have been a composer. I don't think he. I don't. I mean, maybe he just would have had more happy music, but
Yeah,
I mean, his music was just so like emotional.
right.
Um, we owe Ross an answer to this because he gave us money. I'm just kidding. Um, any thoughts on the attempted call to Maura Murray caught on the cell tower that never went through? Julie
Hmm.
Murray reported this.
Yeah, so
We're talking
is
about the
this known as
ping.
the Londonderry ping? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I'm not sure we ever really had a good handle on it then, and I would say so many years removed from looking into that specific thing. Like I have less answers on that now. Um, so I don't think there was really anything proven.
You know what's interesting now, though, looking back on it, when we were looking at the phone records and we were trying to line up certain phone calls, incoming, outgoing, that was so interesting in retrospect. Like back then, when you received a phone call on your cell phone, you probably answered it. Or if it went to voicemail, you called somebody back right away. You weren't readily texting, and there weren't spam calls and telemarketers every other phone call. Right now, I'm looking at my phone, and I haven't answered a phone call in probably 5 years. I I have
Yeah,
so many spam calls and telemarketers coming in. If you were to look at my phone records, it would be 95% spam. And that was not the case back then. So my thoughts now on that call was that there's a purpose to it. And I know that sounds so like simplistic, But when you think about it, someone was calling for a specific purpose, because that's what the use of cell phones was back then.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
No, that's a good point. A good read on it now, with phone calls being a little more disposable now, to your point. Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, we don't the caller's never been identified.
mhm, yeah,
Yeah.
I love how we're going all over the place right now. I love this comment here. We love the prosecutors podcast. We would
Yeah.
absolutely love to do a collaboration with them on John Benet Ramsey. I think that would be
So,
so good.
yeah. Yeah, so Jessica says I started listening to the prosecutors podcast because of you guys, and they did a deep dive into John Bonet a couple of years ago. Yeah, I would say there is a good chance we should do a collab with them discussing the case. I'm curious, what angle did they believe, Jessica? If you've got a quick answer there, did they believe an intruder, or did they believe that the family had something to do with it? Either way, we should do a collab. It doesn't matter to me, but um, a lot of the questions we ask in those shows with John Wesley Anderson are because we don't know the answer, and we've read his book. I think I've read it twice now, but I don't really feel great speaking like a pro, or like an expert in the case, because we have John Wesley Anderson there to ask those questions of. So maybe we'll bring him along. I don't know. I don't know. But no, we do love Brett and Alice. They're great people. And yeah, we definitely have been collaborating with them since the beginning of their show. And it is time we do a new one.
And oh, Ross says the same thing. Started listening to them because of us. That's
Good.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely great people.
Oh,
Mhm.
Shacy, enjoy your podcast. How do you feel about using psychics to assist you with your cases? What a great question. Well, Greg Overacker loves psychics. That's his first line of investigation technique when he's going into a case. He always contacts a psychic right before he does anything else. Uh, I'm
that's that's
so
a joke.
kidding about that.
Yeah, he's a private investigator. Greg Overack, we've spoken to him many times, mostly about Brianna's case. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's probably not the best idea to use psychics, for a few reasons, right? I think if we're amateurs looking into a case and we're looking at psychics, we're sort of or we're talking to psychics about specifics in a true crime case, like we're giving um, more potentially just useless information, right? Now, I'm not saying all psychics are useless. There might be some useful information in there, but it's just, it invites the idea that you're just like, you're putting out facts that aren't facts, right? You're putting out information that isn't proven by anything necessarily, right? Again, I know some psychics, I believe some psychics have something real there. I can't explain it, but I do know that Lori Bruno, famous psychic, told me, like going back to 2007, that I was going to host a radio show. She was like about I don't know. She was like, "You're gonna scare the hell out of people with your radio show." And I think this was like right around the time the word podcast became a thing in general. So like I have no idea how that came out of her mouth, but she was right, and she even said like, "Oh, there's something with like a star. It might be like a badge." And I mean, she kind of nailed it. Like we go for justice on this, something that isn't a radio show, but back in 2006 or 2007, whenever I had that conversation with her, you know, the word podcast wasn't a thing. YouTube wasn't as big. So yeah, I could see her seeing us with like headphones and not knowing what that is.
Yeah,
So
headphones and
yeah, microphones. Yeah.
a microphone. Hold on, hold on. Wow.
So
Okay.
yeah, while I do really like psychics, I enjoy the experience of going to them. I have to take them with a grain of salt, even though I feel like there has been some indisputable things said to me by psychics or a medium even one time that like I have no answers for. So
Yeah. I agree. I agree. I think psychics at some point come into the picture and provide some sort of answer for people who are just looking for some answer. And in that respect, I don't see any harm with it. If some psychic has to say to a family member who needs this to be said to them after 30 years or 20 years, they're in a better place, they're happy. If they need that reassurance, I'm fine with that. If
yeah.
but if they're going to the police and they're wasting time by saying no, you need to check here, here, and here, and bringing up names that have nothing to do with someone, then that's not cool. Um, we did go. You mentioned Lori Bruno. We did go to her place in
Yeah.
Salem, Massachusetts, and we showed her the pictures of the accident scene and maps, and she was providing us a lot of insight. So in that respect, we're not professional investigators. We went to her, and I've always said like a psychic will, at the very least, if they're a good psychic like Lori Bruno, they will open up your way of thinking that you might not have had going into it. They'll give you something to think about, and it's up to you to use that however you feel is the most responsible way to use it. And yeah, I've had just one experience with a psychic where I can hands down say that is the strangest thing that's ever happened to me. And and you were there when it happened, and I have no clue how that happened. Repeatedly,
Mhm.
like like half a dozen things that I had never told anybody, which is remarkable. I had to call my sister.
Yeah. I remember.
Crazy.
Yeah. It is crazy. I do still think about that moment. And yeah, so it's interesting. I wish I had a better answer, but I guess my overall answer is I think they're really interesting personally. As far as inviting them into true crime cases, I would say that's probably not the best idea. Um, but in a cold case, I don't know. There definitely have been worse ideas, but I wish the TV show, the Oxygen TV show, used Laurie Bruno and not Alison Dubois. I will say that because I don't think that segment in the Murray docu series did anyone any favors. Like I don't think that helped at all. Right.
No, everyone's
Um,
eyes rolled
yeah.
when that episode could have just been left on the cutting room floor. There was no need for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ross brings up
Yeah. I
the
mean,
Beaumont children. Oh,
yep.
sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, so many years removed, I don't think it did any damage necessarily, which is a
Right.
good thing. But things like that could do some damage. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Ross brought up the Beaumont children disappearance. Thank you, Ross. Again, like I haven't thought of this in a long time. This was on one of the calendar mysteries and
Oh,
it brought it back. It brought it back into into my brain space when we were talking about doing certain stories about people disappearing in national parks and forests and things like that. So this is a story I think from the 60s in Australia where these three children disappeared. I can't give you a lot of the details now because I haven't thought of this in about a year, but it's creep. It's one of the ones that kind of gets under your skin. Definitely gets under your skin.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I know that one at all. That would be a good one to look into.
Yeah, definitely. I think the area they went missing in was called like the 12 Apostles or something like that. I got to look into this some more. That's a
Okay.
good one. Ross, why don't you reach out to us and do some research for us?
Yeah, and Anna says that she has done, or is this? Yeah, this is Anna who said she has researched the case. Yeah,
Oh,
feel free if you've got a case suggestion or some research
yeah.
or anything like that, you can email us. I'm at tim@onthecollective.com and Lance at onthecollective.com. Those are emails that will get to us directly. Certainly, any information that you've researched or case suggestions would be a great thing to send over there. Okay, let's take another break for the podcast and we'll be right back. Okay, and I do want to speak about this last story here from this CNN article titled Historical Mysteries Solved by Science in 2024. Lance, the first governor of Jamestown Colony in Virginia was Thomas West. And that was a long time ago, before USA was even a country. But apparently, Thomas West's brother, Captain William West, traveled to the New World to live with his brother, and it was just proven that this Captain William West was actually Thomas's half brother and not his full brother. Interesting story. Apparently, the details of West's birth were deliberately removed from the family's genealogical records at the time, which suggested that the family was aware of the scandalous secret and speculation that Captain William West was, his half brother and not his full brother.
So scandalous.
Yeah, it seemed like, possibly, I believe it was his. Sorry, let me find this part here.
Well, yeah, look for that part, but I want to go back to I totally forgot to mention this. When you put the link in the if people click on the link for this article, there's a picture that should not be overlooked of Beethoven's hair. So they
Yes,
took the
that
sample
was
from
what
it.
was used.
That was
Mhm.
what was used, but you can see a picture of his hair. Like you can actually see Beethoven's hair. I was just I don't know if I really read much more of the article because I was just staring at his hair. It's very interesting.
Okay.
Just wanted to bring that up.
So Captain William West was born to West's aunt, was born to Thomas West's aunt, Elizabeth. So apparently their dad had a fling with
Ooh, with the
his
sister.
sister-in-law. Yeah,
Ooh, wife's sister. That is scandalous. Even today,
that is
that
quite
that might be
scandalous. Yeah,
considered scandalous.
yeah, I would say so.
So when you
All
find
right.
something out like this, like
Yeah.
what's the historical impact here? Is it just like
Well,
we're
they
testing
say
the limits of our DNA abilities, which is
no.
fine.
Well, I think again. I think like the Beethoven one. I think is supposed to be. It's supposed to sort of shed some light in what we thought was fact before, and
Mhm.
apparently what this is sort of shedding more light on is potentially Captain William West's inspiration to sail across the Atlantic to join his brother.
Ah.
So that's kind of it, really.
Mhm.
That maybe he found that out and was inspired to join his brother halfway around the world, um, as opposed to stay with his family on that in that country, I guess, in that continent. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the historical relevance of these, definitely can be debated. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if that's true. That was part of his inspiration, but kind of an interesting angle.
Yeah, yeah, and I think even at the least, like if this is just to take something historic and see if they can apply new DNA advancements and technology to something that isn't going to be like truly disturbed, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
these are like so historic and ancient. There's really no harm in testing your abilities in regards to DNA technology if you want to apply it to these particular stories. So I applaud them for doing that because then you can use that for something real. Then not
Yeah.
real, but you can use that for something current, like
Mhm.
John Benet Ramsey.
Right. Right. Okay. All right. Well, I think we're just about done here. Let's see. Let's take one last question from the chat. And this is from Ross. He says, do you have any suspects in the disappearance of Brianna Maitland? Great question. Um, Not really. I would say it's not really our like in our toolbox specifically to sort of pluck suspects out of an unsolved case that is that really doesn't have any suspects. I would defer to Greg Overacker's book, and he
Yes.
talks about um, the Michelle Gardner Quinn murder in his book, and sort of posits the idea that the murderer of Michelle Gardner Quinn or other random stranger murders like that. He even mentions like Israel Keys. While we don't think Israel Keys did it, I think Greg says you can't really rule these kinds of people out. So that's where I would point. But like as far as a theory myself, I have none. What
Yeah,
about
I
you?
think any theory that I have comes from information that Greg has investigated and researched and discovered, and Lou's information. That book right there is Greg's book, where you can go to the publishing company and you can pick up a copy. If you like Greg Overacker, if you're into the Brianna Maitland disappearance, it's very much a must read.
Yeah, and Ross goes on and says that Israel Keys was active in the
Hmm.
time at the area. That is true, even though I believe the FBI ruled him out of Brianna's case. But you know, who knows? There are certainly other predators like that, if not him. So yeah, so I don't know, but I will say, let me just add that the private investigators in the case, like Lou Barry and Greg Overacker, are they feel strongly that the answer isn't in Brianna's friend circle,
Yeah.
which years ago I think that was a thought, and I think some people sort of push that idea,
Hmm.
but they're convinced that the friends aren't hiding the answer.
Yep. And I'll say something about the Israel Keys theory. That area where she was living, Montgomery, and the Black Lantern restaurant that she worked in, she was a dishwasher at the time, so she might have been seen by patrons as she came out, or maybe was picking up a full bus tub or bringing glassware to the bar or something like that. But for the most part, she wouldn't have been like readily seen in that restaurant. And if Israel Keys was in the area in Montgomery, I really feel like someone would have said, "There's someone here." Like they would have seen his picture. Like somebody would have seen him. He would have stood out, is what I'm saying. Like we drove through there a couple of years ago and we stood out when we were there because we, it's such a small area. We're clearly not from there. And I feel like someone like Israel Keys, if he was trying to find a next murder victim and somehow discovered Brianna Maitland and then ran her off the road, it feels like a bit of a stretch to me. I feel like someone would have said, yeah, there was a guy at the Black Lantern who was clearly not a local, not a regular, and oh, that picture of Israel Keys looks like that guy because he has a unique look. I don't know.
Mhm.
Just a thought that I had right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. It's a good thought.
It's a
All
good
right,
thought.
everyone. Well, thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much for listening here to the subscription show. And we are going to broadcast this on the podcast feed next week. And, these live shows, man, this is really a lot of fun. I'd say we're going to be doing one of these probably every week.
I would love
I
to.
don't really see the harm. So yeah. So check out the Missing CSM YouTube. We'll be back live, I'm sure next week. And yeah, thanks a lot for listening. We really appreciate it, everyone.
Yeah, yeah. And anybody who wants to, I think Ross had said that he would love to provide research. Yeah, reach out to us at those email addresses, and definitely we'll take any good research we can get because you all are the driving force behind these shows.
Yes. All right. Thanks a lot, everyone. And you can subscribe to the subscription show on Apple Podcasts or on Supporting Cast. And we really appreciate it. Thank you
Awesome.
very much for listening.
All right. Well,
All
that was
right. That was
fantastic.
awesome. Yeah, man, that